Imagine discovering that one of the things you've believed your entire life was never actually true. Not because anyone lied to you, not because you weren't paying attention, but because your brain quietly chose the easiest story to remember. Maybe you were told that cracking your knuckles would ruin your joints, or that bulls become furious when they see the color red. Maybe you even heard that humans only have 5 senses, and never thought to question it. These ideas have survived for decades. Some have been passed from parents to children, others spread through classrooms, television, movies, and now social media. What's fascinating is that many of them continue to exist even after they've been proven wrong. So why? If the human brain is capable of extraordinary intelligence, why does it hold on to ideas that simply aren't true? The answer begins with something surprisingly simple. Your brain wasn't designed to find the truth. It was designed to help you survive. Finding the truth often takes time. It requires evidence, patience, and careful thinking. Survival, on the other hand, usually rewards speed. For most of human history, our ancestors couldn't spend hours analyzing every decision. They had to recognize danger instantly, trust familiar patterns, and act before it was too late. That shortcut saved lives. And even today, your brain still depends on shortcuts every single day. Psychologists call them heuristics. You experience them constantly when you recognize a friend's face in a crowd, when you finish someone's sentence before they do, when you instinctively avoid touching a hot stove. Most of the time, these shortcuts are incredibly useful, but sometimes they also convince you that something feels true simply because you've heard it many times before. Researchers call this the Illusory Truth Effect. It's one of the most powerful psychological phenomena you've probably never heard of. Here's how it works. Imagine hearing a statement once. You might question it, hear it again next month, then again a year later. Eventually, your brain begins to process that sentence more easily. And strangely enough, that feeling of familiarity starts to feel like evidence. Not because the statement became more accurate, but because it became easier for your brain to recognize. One famous series of experiments found that people consistently rated repeated statements as more believable than new ones, even when the original statements were false. Familiarity quietly masqueraded as truth. Suddenly, some childhood myths begin to make a lot more sense. Take knuckle cracking. For generations, children have heard the warning, "Stop doing that, or you'll get arthritis." It's memorable. Parents repeat it, teachers repeat it, friends repeat it. After enough repetitions, the warning begins to feel like common sense. But decades of research have never established that ordinary knuckle cracking causes arthritis. The sound isn't your bones grinding together. It's largely caused by changes inside the fluid of your joints as tiny gas bubbles rapidly form or collapse. That doesn't mean cracking your knuckles is always a good habit. If done aggressively or compulsively, it may cause temporary soreness for some people. But the terrifying story most people remember simply isn't supported by the evidence. Notice what happened. The myth didn't survive because it was scientifically stronger. It survived because it was psychologically stronger. And that's an important difference. The same thing happens with another famous belief. People often say bulls become enraged by the color red. It's an image we've seen countless times. A matador, a bright red cape, a charging bull. The scene is so familiar that it feels impossible to question. Yet cattle don't respond to the color red the way popular culture suggests. They're reacting primarily to movement. The cape could be another color, and the charge would still happen if it's waved the same way. Again, familiarity won the battle long before evidence entered the conversation. But repetition isn't the only trick your brain uses. Sometimes your memory itself quietly changes the odds. Think about the strangest story you've ever heard. Chances are you still remember it. Now try remembering something perfectly ordinary from the same day. Much harder, isn't it? That's because your brain isn't a camera. It's a storyteller. And storytellers love unusual events. Psychologists describe another shortcut called the Availability Heuristic. In simple terms, the easier something is to remember, the more common or believable it feels. This explains why dramatic myths often spread faster than boring facts. Consider the famous claim that people swallow several spiders every year while sleeping. It's creepy. It's vivid. It instantly creates a mental image most people wish they never had, which is exactly why people remember it. Not because it happened, because it's unforgettable. The truth is far less dramatic. There has never been credible evidence supporting that claim. Spiders generally avoid large, noisy, vibrating creatures, which sleeping humans definitely are, but the boring explanation never had much of a chance. One story creates fear, the other simply describes spider behavior. Guess which one your memory chooses? And once that memorable story settles into your mind, something else quietly begins to happen. You start noticing information that supports what you already believe, and you begin ignoring information that doesn't. This is known as confirmation bias. Once your brain accepts an idea, it naturally starts collecting evidence that supports it while overlooking evidence that challenges it. Imagine someone who believes that older people can't learn new skills. Every time they meet an elderly person struggling with technology, it reinforces that belief. But when they hear about a 70-year-old learning Italian, earning a college degree, or picking up the piano, those stories are often dismissed as rare exceptions. The belief protects itself, not because it's true, because the brain prefers consistency over contradiction. Changing your mind is surprisingly expensive. It forces the brain to rebuild mental models that may have existed for years. That's why many false beliefs don't disappear the moment new evidence appears. They slowly fade, if they fade at all. There's another shortcut working behind the scenes. It's called authority bias. From the moment we're born, trusting authority is useful. Parents teach us not to touch fire. Teachers explain how the world works. Doctors offer medical advice. Without trust, learning would become painfully slow. The problem begins when authority and accuracy quietly drift apart. Sometimes advice survives long after the evidence changes. Sometimes a simplified explanation taught to children follows us into adulthood. Take the idea that humans have only 5 senses. Most of us learned it in school. Sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch. Simple. Easy to remember, easy to teach. But modern neuroscience paints a far richer picture. Your sense of balance helps you stay upright without thinking. Your sense of body position lets you touch your nose with your eyes closed. You can detect pain, temperature, and even subtle changes in muscle tension through distinct sensory systems. The old lesson wasn't exactly malicious. It was simplified. And simplified ideas often become permanent because no one ever returns to update them. By now, you may have noticed something interesting. None of these myths survive because millions of people carefully examine the evidence. They survive because they fit the way human memory naturally works. The brain values familiarity. It values efficiency. It values coherent stories. Truth, unfortunately, doesn't always share those priorities. But here's where this becomes more personal. The most influential myths in your life probably aren't about spiders, or bulls, or knuckles. They're about you. I'm just bad at math. I'm not creative. I'm too old to change. I've always been like this. Listen carefully to those sentences. How many are based on evidence? And how many simply became familiar after years of repetition? Maybe someone said them when you were a child. Maybe you repeated them after a difficult experience. Maybe they've become part of your identity simply because you've heard them inside your own head thousands of times. Research on neuroplasticity suggests that the adult brain remains capable of adapting throughout life. Learning may become slower. It may require more deliberate practice, but change is far from impossible. The stories we tell ourselves often become invisible because we've repeated them for so long. And that's exactly what makes them powerful. The goal isn't to become suspicious of everything. That would make daily life impossible. Your brain needs shortcuts. It always will. The real skill is knowing when to slow down. When an idea feels instantly obvious, ask yourself why. Does it feel true because you've examined the evidence? Or because you've simply heard it 100 times? Curiosity begins where certainty becomes uncomfortable. And that may be one of the most valuable habits you can develop. Because the biggest myths aren't always the ones shared on the internet. Sometimes they're the quiet assumptions you've carried for years without realizing they were never carefully tested. The remarkable thing isn't that your brain can be fooled. It's that your brain can also learn. Every time you question an old belief, every time you follow evidence instead of familiarity, you're doing something your brain was always capable of doing. You're updating the map. Not because you were foolish before, but because growth has never been about knowing everything. It's about remaining willing to discover that you don't. So the next time you hear a claim that sounds unquestionably true, pause. Not to reject it, not to accept it, but to ask one simple question: how do I know this is true? That single question has changed science. It has changed history, and sometimes it can quietly change the way you see yourself. If you enjoyed exploring how the mind builds beliefs, you might also enjoy discovering the hidden cognitive biases that shape your decisions every single day. Because understanding the brain isn't just about learning new facts. Sometimes it's about letting go of the old ones.